Hello, my name is Carly Seuss, and I'm here today to refute the claim that pharmaceuticals are beneficial to mankind. The advocate's first secondary claim was that pharmaceuticals help prevent diseases. The second claim was that they serve as treatment of previously untreatable diseases. And the third claim is that pharmaceuticals prolong life until other options are available. My response is that pharmaceuticals are not nearly as beneficial as the advocate claims that they are, because the advocate failed to identify certain negative aspects, including the negative effects of vaccines, overdoses, and adverse drug effects, or ADEs. On the first secondary claim that pharmaceuticals help prevent disease, the advocate uses WebMD article to show how polio vaccine, or IPV, has eradicated the polio virus in the United States. Although the vaccine did assist in getting rid of the disease, WebMD states at the end of the article that the polio vaccine, like any medicine, could potentially cause serious problems such as a severe allergic reaction. Even though the risk of an allergic reaction to a vaccine is small, it is still present and can result in many negative symptoms, including nausea, fainting, low blood pressure, and many more within a few minutes to within a few hours of receiving the vaccine. And that is only for this vaccine. The advocate also brings up the point that measles and mumps are resolved due to the two-step MMR vaccination. However, the CDC states that about 3 out of 100 people who receive that 2 doses of MMR vaccine will get measles if they're exposed to the virus. And that the recommended 2 doses are only 88% effective when preventing mumps. This means that vaccines are still not perfect and shows that sometimes vaccines do not prevent the disease. Rather, they do nothing to prevent people from getting these diseases and are only just a blank cost. In addition to that, a report was written by Barbara Lowe Fisher, the co-founder and president of the National Vaccine Information Center, that states that vaccines can even cause some people to become infected by the vaccinated virus. The report states that during viral infection, live virus is shed in the bodily fluids of those who are infected for varying amounts of time and can be transmitted to others. Vaccine strain live virus is also shed for varying amounts of time in bodily fluids of vaccinated people and can be transmitted to others. This means that even if someone is vaccinated with that live virus, they can possibly infect others with the virus because they can spread it through their bodily fluids. This can be dangerous to children who do not have the ability to get vaccines due to allergies or diseases because they will have no defense against spreading the virus that was started by the vaccine. On the secondary claim that pharmaceuticals serve as treatment of previously untreatable diseases, the advocate includes a lot of summary on the advancements of pharmaceuticals within the last 50 years. Some of the evidence connects to the secondary claim, but most of it feels like random facts and dates when things were discovered. For example, the advocate states that in the time range of 1987 to 1994, the first effective cystic fibrosis treatment renews hope. This hope that is brought up does not connect back to either the secondary claim or the main claim of the argument. For the third secondary claim that pharmaceuticals prolong life until other options are available, the advocate fails to use any evidence that pertains to the topic of prolonging while being able to find that solution. The ending of the speech was rushed because she was out of time, resulting in the final point being insufficiently supported. One thing the advocate failed to identify was how great the cost of a medication can be. Yes, low-income families aren't able to readily afford a surgery, but if medications are used to prolong life until surgery can be done, the cost of those the family will end up spending a lot of money maintaining that medication. Although medication is cheaper than surgery, both are still high in price range. This proves how for low-income families, or those who do not have access to them, pharmaceuticals may be seen as pointless or futile. Another contrary argument to this point is that the advocate did not address how some drugs are addictive and can end up causing more harm than good when abused. Drug overdoses currently result in more deaths per year than other well-known causes of death, such as death by firearm or car crash, according to the CDC. The fact that overdosing deaths outnumber these well-known causes show that pharmaceuticals are actually harmful to mankind, as some people can become addicted to a prescription and they can end up dying of an overdose. These cases show that pharmaceuticals can cut someone's life short rather than prolonging it. My last point is that the applicant did not touch on the subject of ADEs or adverse drug effects. These ADEs include any effects that the drug was not intended to cause, which could include bringing harm to the patient. A journal from the National Center of Biotechnology Information stated that in England, a study evaluating 18,820 patients has found that 6.5% of hospitalizations were directly caused by an adverse drug effect, and another research showed that 15.8% of hospitalized patients developed an adverse drug effect. This shows that even while in a facility that manages these pharmaceuticals, some of the patients did not benefit but ended up receiving these unwanted effects and possible harms. In conclusion, these pharmaceuticals are not nearly as beneficial as the applicant claims that they are due to the lack of mention of things such as negative vaccine effects, high overdose rates, and adverse drug effects. Thank you.
Right, the structural stuff is all fine. You do preview some of the arguments that you're going to be making as well. On the first point, you basically are talking about some of the potential disadvantages of taking the vaccines. Those are okay. I mean, to be honest with you, if I was evaluating this in a debate, I'd say, okay, well, so the alternative is you have polio, or you risk having nausea 2 hours after you get the vaccination. That doesn't seem to me like a big risk that's going on there. The argument about measles simply suggests that the disease is not entirely eradicated. That doesn't necessarily suggest that there's anything particularly dangerous. Saying something isn't perfect isn't exactly an argument that says that it isn't good. I think that is a little bit problematic, but I get the idea that you're trying to diminish the significance of the advocate's claim. One thing that you probably ought to acknowledge is, look, there's no dispute that pharmaceuticals can have beneficial effects. Let's not pretend that the argument is they have no beneficial effects or they have great beneficial effects. They have both, all right? The question is, why is this an argument? Why are we looking at this particular issue? And I think that I'm still not clear about why it is that we have a need to have this particular argument. And it might have been a good idea to maybe go at that concept a little bit more instead of kind of picking at things like you're doing with the measles thing. I mean, you take what you can find, and I think you found a couple of things, but I think the better argument would have been that there's not as much dispute on this as the advocate's talking about. Whereas the real criticism on this issue, there might be criticism about whether pharmaceutical companies are premature in trying to get medications on the market, whether they take responsibility for mistakes that they've made, that sort of thing. Your argument at the end, I think, is the strongest counter-argument on this about the adverse drug interactions and problems that go there. And the one statistic that you have, that 6% of the hospitalizations were a result of these drug kinds of things, I think that's it. That's the thing that most quantifies and suggests some counterbalance to whatever benefit there is from using pharmaceuticals. I'm still not sure that it's significant enough to show on the opposite side, but I don't think you'd have to prove the opposite side if there isn't really an argument about that in the first place. So that's why I think you needed to maybe go in that other direction. But I did like the information about the dangers of addictive drugs and the adverse drug interactions that you were talking about as well. The challenge on cystic fibrosis was a press. It was reasonable. It was okay. The vaccine issue, that's also a press. It's okay. It's not a bad thing. The cost argument, I think, is probably a pretty good argument too, suggesting that pharmaceuticals are only useful if people can afford and utilize them, and there's a substantial number of people who can't. And by the way, there might be arguments about, this might be where some of the dispute is, that the pharmaceutical companies manipulate costs and that kind of thing. I'm not sure which way we would go on that, since it would depend on what the original argument was on that. So you found what you could find, and you did okay with that. That's good. Thank you.